to cut the numbers in hotels.
Well, joining us now to talk about this is Lewis Cocking, who is the local Conservative MP for Broxbourne, which is next to Epping. And there's a migrant hotel in his constituency that he's attempting to have closed. And Labour activist Kevin Craig, who thinks that closing these hotels now would simply lead to chaos. We'll come to you in a moment, Kevin, but let's start with you, Lewis Cocking. We have had, I have to say, a lot of messages this morning to the programme from people, some of them in Epping, some of them elsewhere, saying that they will take it very, very badly if the government wins its attempt to appeal against the closure of Epping. How do you think your constituents would respond to that?
Well, look, the government shouldn't be appealing this decision. They stood on a manifesto to close asylum hotels, and now we're in this bizarre situation where the government is taking their own manifesto through the courts to say, actually, we want to overturn this decision. That is a bizarre thing. They got the election, they won the election on that manifesto to close asylum hotels. Asylum hotels have gone up, more have opened since the general election. And as I said, we're now in a position, I don't think we've ever been in this position before, where a government is taking their own election manifesto through the courts.
We saw triumphant celebrations last week in Epping amongst the protesters and the broader constituency to the court's decision that the hotel has to close. How do you think they would respond if the government wins the appeal and overturns that judgment?
Well, the government really needs to read the room on this. When I go out speaking to people on the doorstep in my constituency of Broxbourne, it always comes up on the doorstep. 9 out of 10 people raise it with me. People want to see the end of illegal immigration. The government really needs to get a grip and meet its manifesto commitment. I know they've essentially thrown their manifesto in the bin and not done loads of things in their manifesto.
That's not fair.
They've got a manifesto and they said that they would close asylum hotels and they've got no plan to do that.
Kevin.
You're a very hard-working local constituency MP, right? But the hotels are a Conservative Party creation, OK? They came in under your government. And the government does hear the public. It hears your poll this morning. It hears that...
What's the Times poll? The
Times poll, sorry, you quoted. Yeah. The government hears that people say don't try and overturn these decisions. But if we are to close the hotels orderly, and the manifesto commitment with respect was that by the end of this Parliament there'll be no more of the hotels that your crowd brought in. And so there are 4 years left. The reality is these facilities are deeply unpopular anywhere in the country. The fact is nobody wants them, and we understand that, and we want to close them in a measured way, and that's why the government is saying we have to have the ability at the centre to close the hotels in an ordered fashion. Otherwise, we're going to create even more problems that will worry communities.
OK, Lewis, so look, your government supported them. You know, Robert Jenrick was protesting outside the hotel in Epping, and he was one that approved the wider use of them when he was immigration
minister. The number of hotels under the Conservatives halved.
Yes, it did come down, and it's continued to come down.
Well, since the election, under this Labour government, more hotels have been opened. So we've had a year of this Labour government. We've just heard again in their manifesto
that they
true,
said, more have been open? Because they said the numbers are smaller.
They are smaller.
They are smaller.
There are more hotels open now than at the date of the general election.
OK,
that is
so
clear.
What would you do with the people in them, other than not have them near you?
We need to build a detention centre. We tried this with military bases. We tried this with the Bibby Stockholm. We should not be allowing people to come over on small boats, arrive in this country illegally. We have no idea where they come from, who they are, whether they've got criminal records. They should not just be allowed to walk around on the streets.
But that's true, whatever you're going to do.
They should be detained in detention centres. When I go on holiday, and if I lose my passport, they put me in a room and detain me and question me before I'm allowed to get through passport control.
So why did the Conservative government open them in the first place?
Well, we tried to use military bases. We tried to use the Bibby Stockholm, which was exacerbated through the courts.
No, this was before that. There were the asylum hotels before that. Why did they feel the need then? Or where has that need gone in the last year? If you're saying
I think it was the wrong policy to use hotels.
Right, so you don't agree with it?
I've always been against the hotel in my constituency. I stopped another 2 locations within my constituency when I was leader of the council being used as asylum accommodation.
It sounds as if you're moving towards... You've already been in this position for a while, obviously now, to what Nigel Farage was saying just before the weekend, and he'll be making a speech about tomorrow. He's calling exactly for that, for detention centres, old ex-RAF disused camps to be converted to detention centres. He's adding on top of that, he's saying that illegal asylum seekers should not be allowed to stay there for more than 4 weeks, and they should be either sent back to where they came from or sent to a third country, such as Rwanda, that we can make an arrangement with. What do you think of that?
So I think Nigel Farage is a very effective political communicator, and for the government, the challenge for this Labour government is if we don't, and that's why the government wants to do the things in these ways, if we don't sort this by the next election, going to pay a very heavy electoral price. The Labour view is do it with good systems. Things are actually moving in the right direction. I have to take issue with what Lewis said there. Since the last election, we are processing people faster. The amount spent on hotels is going down. But the challenge for Labour, and it's a good one, is Nigel Farage thinks you can click your fingers and do it overnight. We say it's more expensive and more complicated.
OK, what's wrong with the idea of using camps that Lewis said? Because a lot of people... As detention centres. What's wrong with the idea of doing that? Because people can see the logic of that. Not in a town centre, easier to keep secure because it's already something that's set up for that. Yeah. Why would that not be the case?
Well, the National Audit Office recently published a report which was all about the cost. And let's remember public money, because the other things we talk about on these shows is health service, education, all those priorities. And the National Audit Office showed that it's more expensive to go for the large-scale detention centres. So it's actually, if you disperse and if you close the hotels, you know, phase by phase, you'll save more public money. But what the Labour government accepts is it can never happen quickly enough for people. And we hear that.
Can I just read you a couple of messages that we've got? And these are typical of the majority of the messages. How do you process these people when they have no documentation? They're criminals because they're here illegally. As soon as they land on our shore with no passport, they should be arrested on site and deported. Now, that is a typical message that we've had this morning. And that's exactly what Nigel Farage is suggesting. And I put it to you, actually, that Farage is outflanking you guys. Well, I mean, Kemi Badenoch said yesterday that he was stealing your clothes.
Absolutely not. Kemi's come out and said we need to use Nightingale processing centres. Our policy has been quite clear, and she set out our policy. And we made a number of amendments to the immigration bill that the Labour government brought in to say that if you arrive in this country legally, you should never be able to claim British citizenship or indefinite leave to remain. That is a massive pull factor.
But you are actually legally,
which is a massive pull factor
I just read out,
that the Labour government have changed.
To stay, aren't you?
Well, people do have legal claims.
The Labour government has changed the law. If you arrive in this country illegally, no ifs, no buts, you should never be allowed to stay here and get British citizenship or indefinite leave to remain. Others more will come. We've seen that. Unless we reduce the pull factors and have a detention centre, detain people and deport them within 24 hours, more will come and we will not be able to stop the boats.
All right,
do you think it was wrong for the government to take issue in this politically, to go and try and overturn the appeal in Epping? Because that's going to be taxpayers' money, and at the very least, our message is saying they're not reading a room.
Well, and the Labour government hears that, Kate, but actually, if you want the government, if you want to hold them to account at the centre to fix this, you can't take away Yvette Cooper's ability to pull the levers to finally deal with and clear up the Tory mess.
All right. Thank you both very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed for all your messages. I have a feeling we'll be talking about this tomorrow and the day after and the day after.